Okay, so this video was inspired by some people arguing who the strongest One Piece character is definitively. I thought I'd end this debate and drop my list of the top 30 strongest characters to date. The only rule I've put in place is this. There will be no dead characters present on this list, meaning no Floodgate, Roger, and no Jack Walt. So without further ado, let's get into it. Dropping in at number 30, we have Wilfred Oden's. Wilfred fans are up. The fact that this man has control over 3 devil fruits is insane, on top of his already crazy haki. The only issue with Wilfred is his trash durability, having been pulverized by Rhododendron on Red Rose. What's more, Wilfred refuses to use his strongest ability, the Reality Bullet, meaning his hacks aren't as good as they need to be when dealing with some top-tier characters. Overall, however, Wilfred is still a W guy, and I can pretty confidently give him the number 30 spot. Moving on to number 29, we have Danas. Now I love Danas as much as the next man, but look, this boy is getting weaker by the day. We know that his strength and durability was crazy back in the day, but Danas is a lot older than he was before and he's heavily out of his prime. Current Danas was struggling with Zinnia, and claimed he couldn't do fuck all against her devil fruit's durability. I'm sorry, but for that Danas can't go any higher. You could even argue that Wilfred might solo if considering the Reality Bullet, though I still have faith in Danas' sheer haki to put him higher than Wilfred Oden's. Despite his old age, we gotta give him the respect he deserves, and number 29 is a good spot for him. Coming in at 28, we have Ani's Kid. In all honesty, Ani's might be trash, but we got to give him the elder respect. If this man had a Navy base named after him, he has to be cold. It might turn out that he's fodder, but until we find out more, I'm keeping him at a cool number 28 spot. Moving next to 27, I gotta give it to Gavin Lumina. We've seen what he could do during East Blue, and that wasn't even his full power. Now, of course, we also have to consider time skip and how much stronger he could have become. I think he'd probably put Danas and Wilfred to bed, though number 27 is his limit. There's simply too many GOAT characters higher on the list, who I think he'd have trouble taking down, though we'll have to wait and see. Next in 26, we have another member of the Dead Duchy, Andre Tepesh. Andre is not to be fucked with, having taken on both Anna and Aurora at once. What's more, he's entirely responsible for Aurora's death, and an enraged Anna still lost to him. You could argue that Gavin might be stronger, though based of current evidence I'd have to give it to Andre, putting him in the number 26 position. Heading on down to 25, we've got Malay Nala. For a character we haven't seen post-time skip, I'm giving Malay the benefit of the doubt here, assuming she's still as strong as she was back then. On Sujora, Malay was being compared constantly to Danas, essentially acting as a Skypian counterpart to him. After the battle with the Devil's Claws, we can see clearly that she hadn't taken any damage from the fight. Either that or she was a little bitch and didn't partake in battle. On top of the hype surrounding her, we know she clashed with a younger Honua, giving her a huge buff in portrayal. Until we see more of her, however, I won't be putting Malay any higher on the list, and we'll have to wait for her to do more in the story. 24, we have Chadicus Chadwick. Once again, this is a character we haven't seen much from post-time skip. It's unclear whether or not Chadicus was going all out on media, but even still, he was still able to fold Roscoe like a fucking Ed and Eddie character. Chadicus can also reach higher powers through the use of his devil fruit, much like Andre and Gavin Lumina, so I'll give him some extra points for that. We'll have to see how Chadicus does when up against some later characters in the story, but for now 24 is his position. Now at 23, we have the king of trash himself, Matthias. This boy was really on his way to Ani's lobby and got shit on. Despite this, however, we still have to give Matthias some props for what he can and did do during that arc. He was able to assist Floodgate in the battle against the Admirals, which is pretty impressive. On top of that, his Conqueror's haki is nuts, and was going toe-to-toe against Floodgate's and Forsythia's. Overall, however, this guy Matthias is being left in the dirt by some of these other characters. He's no longer in the running to become Emperor level, and I'd honestly say he loses to most of the other characters on the list. We'll see how strong he's gotten after time skip, but for now he's at 23. Now at last, in number 22, we have the GOAT Pierre. Pierre fans are eating healthy today in the number 22 spot. Using Apis, I think Pierre is far above the likes of Malay Nala, Chadicus, and Matthias, having been able to one-shot Rose. Now bear in mind Rose was also an awakened Zoan. On top of all this, Pierre's hammer is cracked and can stun a vast majority of enemies such as Cindy Cole. Pierre also shook the Titan's fall before timeskip in base form, so yeah. Pierre's only on the up, and by the end of the story he'd probably be somewhere in the top 8, though he still has ways to go. Now moving into number 21 we have Pelioko. As of recording this video, Pelioko has just squared up to the Myth Pirate Task Force, and I have no idea the outcome of that battle. For all I know he might get folded by Pierre, but I'll just have to wait and see. Being the right hand of Mondo you have to be a strong guy, and Pelioko was stated to be the strongest fishman when in seawater. Once again however we currently don't know too much about him, and we'll have to see how strong he is against the task force. Now at number 20 we've got the greatest character ever in One Piece. Old One Eye. This is hands down the GOAT of East Blue, and we all know he's James' cousin. In all seriousness, why is Old One Eye here at 20? Well, Old One Eye was the terror of the East Blue and had apparently clashed with Gold Roger back in the day. Old One Eye was never stated to be out of his prime, and as a matter of fact he could have gotten stronger since then. Though I won't go too far with that speculation, and so I'll put him at a decent number 20 spot. Cruising into number 19 we've got Salem Jones. The Salem tax is crazy, having 2 devil fruits and on his way to a 3rd. Salem did lose to Davy Jones over the timeskip.
Shut the fuck up, bitch.
And also lost to an incomplete Myth Pirate crew. Though in my humble opinion I think Salem is stronger than both Pelioko and Pierre. I personally think Salem has a lot more to offer, and we have to remember how much of a newbie he was with the light fruit at that time. I also don't buy his loss to Davy, and I suspect the two of them to be more equal in power. I think this spot is fitting for Salem, and we'll just have to see what happens with his 3rd devil fruit slot and what he'll pick to use. And at 18 we have the first admiral on the list, Vivian Lockhart. I think it's no secret that Vivian is the weakest of the admirals we've seen thus far.
That's too easy!
Out of every admiral that fought Floodgate and Matthias at Ani's lobby, Vivian was handling it the worst, and her old age isn't doing her any favors. Her devil fruit, however, is overwhelmingly busted, providing her with healing-based abilities and immense speed. It's only due to her age that I'm putting her as the weakest admiral, and I don't think she can hold the smoke when compared to characters like Troy Gregor and Joseph Husk. Regrettably, Vivian is solid at the number 18 spot. Number 17 we move to Migi Iwaki. Now some of you might be thinking, who the fuck is this? But for those of you who do not read the manga, let me explain. Migi Iwaki was the former vice captain of the Fallout Pirates and has recently escaped Impelled Down. We don't know really anything about him, but considering he escaped with a former admiral and also his previous position as vice captain to open, I think we gotta put him somewhere on this list. Here he is at number 17. Number 16 I've put Rihanna, the Crazy Cloud. She doesn't really have anything going for her so far, as much like any other character. She hasn't done anything. Though being an admiral we gotta give her some respect. We did see her pull up on Pleasure Planet and Roy Noland was sweating. Other than that, we can't even begin to know how strong she is. So I'll put her at a safe spot in number 16. 15 I'm giving it to Davy Jones. I think this guy is highly underrated and honestly deserves more respect in the community. How can we forget that this is the brother of Salem Jones and son of Open?
Whoa.
Bro legit fought a Titan in acidic rain and was fine about it. When it comes to Conqueror's Haki, I honestly can't say he's that GOAT, however, as Pierre was able to fuck him up, shaking him off while on the Taurus. We'll see what he can do in the future, but as for now Davy is the halfway point for this list. Number 14 is a little controversial, but I think Maltarian deserves this spot. We don't have any actual feats of strength to give Maltarian, as his only known fight against Morelli was a wash.
Scary monster!
However, through portrayal, we have to understand that this man is a celestial dragon. The abilities of the Plague fruit were able to press the inhabitants of Ravenous Star, and I think he shouldn't be underestimated by any sense. Until we see or hear any more about him, I'll have to keep him at number 14, however, and we'll see what happens with his character as we continue. Moving onwards, we have Troy Gregor at number 13.
That's what I'm talking about!
This boy Troy has put in some work to become an admiral, and I truly believe him to be a major threat to the Myth Pirates. Before timeskip, he completely bodied Roscoe while at full power, and he had no worries when pulling up to Goal's Edge, despite Honua being there. Troy also has one of the craziest fruits in the story, and the powers of the wind fruit make him a very powerful opponent for just about anyone, putting him easily at number 13. Number 12 we have Ex-Admiral Joseph Husk. Another admiral makes it to the top 15, and this time Joseph Husk fans are eating. He seemed to be doing decently against Floodgate and Matthias at Ani's lobby, keeping leveled headed to the point where he could escape using his dust powers. He was also regarded by the Duke of Death to be a very valuable asset to his crew, giving him a boost in status. While I don't believe Joseph to be on the levels of Skylar or Jesus, I do think he's one of the strongest admirals the Navy has to offer, and I'm interested to see what he does later in the story. As for now, he's casually at number 12. Moving into number 11, we have the Red Son of the Sea, otherwise known as Garen Tice. The Red Son of the Sea should need no introduction into how powerful he is, having taken down Jesus. We know Jesus was on the verge of winning, however, and probably would have won if it wasn't for some fucking Otis shadow that stopped him. With that being said, the Red Son of the Sea still has huge presence in the story and is regarded as a major threat among many of the characters. I personally believe if that were any other admiral in Jesus' position, they would have been killed, and the Red Son of the Sea easily takes the number 11 spot on this list. Now entering the top 10, we have Jaime Lionel. This guy Jaime is not to be taken lightly, having proven powerful enough to clash with Fleet Admiral tier fighters. He's regarded as the greatest swordsman, which should in theory put him above every other sword wielder on this list. I personally believe Jaime to be one of the most underrated characters in the story, having incredible hype throughout the series. However, despite this, I need to see more from him in order to put him further in the top 10 and into that caliber of Yonkos and gods. Overall, Jaime sits comfortably in the number 10 spot. Now moving into number 9, we have Honua de Hoku. Now it's incredibly unclear at the moment how strong Honua truly is, though I do believe her to be in the top 10. Her crew is stated time and time again to be the best in the whole story, being incredibly efficient in dealing with situations. However, Honua has the lowest bounty out of the original emperors, and is also the youngest. That might not inherently mean Honua is the weakest out of the original emperors, but it has to be taken into consideration during this discussion. In terms of Haki, we know she has to have some cracked abilities, having been trained by a Prime Danis, and being able to take down Malay Nala whilst being a fresh pirate is insane. Until we get further confirmation, however, I'll be putting Honua at number 9 respectively. Now at number 8 we got Roy Noland. Now listen here, Roy Noland fans. This motherfucker is on fraud watch. You're telling me that this guy is sweating against the likes of the Crazy Cloud, whilst also being the top dog in the revolution. Furthermore, he was nowhere to be seen during the battle at the Evergarden, and he hasn't done shit since East Blue. The only reason Roy is this high is due to blind faith, and the fact that without a properly strong leader, the revolutionaries are by far the weakest faction in the series. Until he does anything significant, I'm putting Roy Noland at number 8, though hopefully that might change over time. Number 7 gets a little spicy as I've put Fat Neek in this spot. Yes, I think Fat Neek is stronger than Roy Noland. He was shown clashing with Jaime Lionel and made the 4 opposing emperors call an emergency meeting. We've never seen Fat Neek in person, and I'm not sure if we ever will, to be honest. Though if we do, we have to understand how busted this character could potentially be as the successor to Jesus. Hopefully he actually does something sooner rather than later, and Fat Neek fans are starving out here. Either way, I'm putting him at number 7 until further notice. Number 6, we've got the Shogun of Wano, Mondo Ito. This brother Mondo is seriously no joke, his right-hand man being already the strongest fishman. Mondo's durability is by far some of the best in the story, having tanked sword strikes without him doing anything. Given that he's represented as the alternative to Kaido in this universe, we have to give Mondo big respect, being by far the toughest opponent the Myth Pirates are about to face thus far. We'll have to see what happens when he actually fights, but I still think he's worthy of this spot either way.
Top 10 dogs I would pet instead of my dog. First we got...
Now we enter the top 5 with the last Admiral, and now Fleet Admiral, Skylar Morelli. Skylar Morelli is the top G of the Navy, having taken the position of Jesus after his death. Before Timeskip, she was fighting and clashing constantly with Floodgate, being able to split the ocean. Now I don't know if any of you at home have tried splitting the seas, but I'll tell you right now it's fucking difficult. And Skylar Morelli did it just using paper. Her abilities are extremely busted, and I'm happy to say she's probably the strongest Navy official besides Jesus. Even though she's this powerful, she's still only at number 5, and we'll have to see who makes it above her. Now at number 4, things get heated with the last emperor on the list, Mikhail Hollow. How can this man not be in the top 5? He's got strings literally everywhere and knows just about everything there is to know. His shadow hockey is completely off the charts, and he was able to sneak past everyone at Annie's lobby, including Skylar and Floodgate. I think it would be incredibly hard to overcome Mikhail Hollow, and to be honest, I view him as the outright strongest pirate on the seas right now. Having killed Floodgate and ended the battle on Annie's lobby, all things considered, Mikhail number 4 hands down.
That lovely.
So if Mikhail is the strongest pirate, and Skylar is the strongest Navy official, then who in the fuck is top 3? Well, at number 3 we have the OG Morelli. We already know the hype around this character and how busted she has to be. She clapped Maltarian in a 1v1 and is the only remaining god that isn't currently a devil fruit. Even the Pale Moon King was trapped into a devil fruit, standing as a testament to how strong Morelli truly is. Of course, we all know she had helped in the fight against Joy Boy, but we'll get to that in a moment. As for now, Morelli is the number 3 spot, but could be interchangeable with number 1 down the line. Number 2 we have James D. Hook. Now let's be honest, we all knew James was top 3. I mean, this guy is busted. If you didn't know, James is probably the strongest thing the Myth Pirates could ever produce, having defended Morelli against Joy Boy and taken down an army of devil fruit users. This all sounds well and good, until you realize that James did this whilst still being a human being. After that, Morelli turned James into a god, boosting his power and status even further. James Hook also has probably the most broken fruit in all of the series, that being the Time fruit, meaning he can utilize the powers of pretty much any JoJo villain if he wants to.
Doja!
We have no idea what lengths James can go to, easily pulling in the top 3, and he might even be number 1 by the end of the series. As for now though, James is number 2. Before I reveal my number 1 pick for the strongest character in all of One Piece, I have to give some honorable mentions for characters that just didn't quite make it. Firstly, I wanted to mention Anna, as she's definitely a lot stronger than we give her credit for. However, we just simply haven't seen her actually win in a fight in quite some time. I also wanted to give a shout out to Billy the Kid, as his abilities are pretty fucking nutty. Though much like Anna, we haven't seen him win any fights, and he mostly just acts as a background character for now in the story. I also wanted to clarify, I have no idea if Joy Boy is still alive, so he will not be making an appearance in the number 1 spot. Sorry to all the Luffy fangirls.
I'm gonna be king of the pirates!
Okay, so at number 1, we have Astraeus Andromeda. Now some of you might be thinking, who the fuck is this? And that's fair, but allow me to explain. Astraeus is a character we know barely anything about other than the fact she's a celestial dragon. However, after looking through some cheeky riddles and puzzles left by Oda, I personally believe Astraeus to be this universe's version of Emu and the man on the empty throne. If this is true and Andromeda is over the celestial dragons, then that's pretty crazy. Given the hype around her and through story portrayal, it's highly possible that she could be the strongest character in the story. If the celestial dragons are capable of creating ancient weapons that frighten Mikhail, then imagine how strong Andromeda is, hands down number 1 material. And that concludes my list of the top 30 strongest characters in One Piece. If you disagree, you're wrong, and I will disprove any claims against it with sheer facts and dominance. Okay, that's it from me. Subscribe and go away.